Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of McDonald County 411. I have a very special guest today, Mr. Carl Steiger of the 808 Ranch in Anderson, Missouri. Thank you for being here, Carl.
Well, Tara, it's a delight to have you in our piece of paradise here in the Elk River Valley.
Yes, so for all of you folks at home, my view right now is a beautiful view of the Elk River Valley. Their place is perfect.
We've been here 5 years now.
5 years already, wow.
Already, yes.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like. Now remind me who you took, did the Adams own this?
Not this property.
No,
this
this
property was owned by the Garrison family. And interesting, this ranch had been homesteaded in the 1860s by the Langley family. And their cemetery is right there, 200 feet from our door, and Langley Road runs right here.
Interesting.
And a corporation out of Texas owned it after 100 years. The Langley family let it go. And Dale and Martha bought it. And they were here almost 50 years.
Now, your original roots hail from Wyoming.
Yes, we're from the northeastern corner of Wyoming. In the Black Hills of South Dakota, only they fall over into what's called the Bear Lodge in Wyoming. And our history goes back to Wisconsin, where my dad grew up and fell in love with the outdoors and cattle. And they would go, my grandparents would take, during the 30s, would take their 5 children on vacations to Wyoming and Montana to go to dude ranches.
Wow.
And one of my cousins, my dad would have been born in 24. And so during the 30s, he's, 10, 12 years old. They had an emergency in Sturgis, South Dakota, and had to spend several days there in the late 30s. One of my aunts had an emergency appendectomy, and my grandfather was a type A. Carl Steiger was a type A personality. He could not sit still. He drove out in Wyoming, found a partner, and bought a ranch that looked over the Devil's Tower National Monument.
So I have to wonder, though, and I love our area. It's beautiful. But what brings a rancher from Wyoming to Southwest Missouri?
An accident.
An accident.
Yeah.
I got to ask, what's the story behind that?
And it ties to this story here.
Okay.
December 12th, 1966.
Okay.
And we're well into winter, and there's a lot of winter in Wyoming, in northern Wyoming.
Yeah.
And we had a feedlot set up on our ranch, and my dad was doing some really innovative things. We had some crossbred cattle. We had steers in the feedlot, and we had a harvest store system which had an auger. And the auger dumped silage for the calves into a recessed auger in the ground. And if you can imagine a 12-inch auger, 13-inch auger, December 12th, my mother is 6. She's due with number 6, and she's already 10 days overdue with number 6.
That's her heart.
So my dad said, Lamar, who was not in school and who is the owner of the ranch, along with my sister-in-law, Sherry, he was 5 years old. Why don't you go with me this afternoon so Mom can get off her feet? And he did. And in the middle of the afternoon, my dad stepped in the auger. And it took him in and started eating his leg up. And he had enough sense and enough calmness to tell Lamar, can you go over and turn that switch off? And it was the only switch in the building he could reach. So Lamar turned it off, and he said, bring me a crescent wrench. And my dad, he did. He did save my dad's life. He had a handkerchief he always wore. He took that off, took the crescent wrench, and made a tourniquet. It had opened up his leg, opened through the kneecap back, and he was stuck. And he told Lamar, he says, you're going to have to walk back to the house a little over half a mile and let Mom know that I'm stuck in the auger. And Lamar had to go through the pasture of bulls and some calves. And he says he remembers crawling along the fence. But he says, I've often wondered how long it took me to get back to the house. And you think about a 5-year-old boy going to that house down there, half an hour, whatever it was. But he got to the house and took his overboots off and went back and told Mom. She got the station wagon. They called the nurse from Devil's Tower. She came out. They put him on a piece of plywood, took him to a hospital in Belfouche, South Dakota. And a doctor just a country doctor, cleaned his leg out, sewed the kneecap back on, wired the muscles to the bone, had little wires on an open sore on his leg the rest of his life, and saved his life. $300 is what he charged us to put my dad's knee back together. And
what heroism that little Lamar faced, that just is a testament to the people that raised him. That at 5 years old, he knew to stay calm.
Well, my dad was a man of faith already, but he really did his business with God that day.
Oh, I imagine.
And it defined his life.
Yeah.
So after that, my dad just said the cold got in his bones. And it wasn't so much that it was cold, but it lasted from 1st of November to the 1st of May. It was a long, long winter, and we fed a lot of hay, had 600 cows. And Dad said, there's probably a better place to ranch. And so he and Mom started looking around after Denver one year. The Garsh brothers, who are in the corn business in Iowa, said, bring your cows, 600 cross cows, Charlotte cross cows to Iowa. Dad went there after Denver. He says it's colder in Iowa than it ever got in Wyoming. So he just kind of kept looking south, looked at Webb City, and Mom flew home. And then he drove down into Arkansas, and we're not quite sure why he bought it, Bentonville, other than it had a good school system.
Right.
And there were 6 of us, and they wanted a good school. And so we relocated in January of 1960 to Bentonville, Arkansas.
How old were you at that time?
1970, I said 15.
A crucial time to pick up and move home or leave home.
It was, but I remember my mom had prepared us well. Her father had worked for Dun and Bradstreet. Mm-hmm. He had graduated from Vanderbilt. She moved to probably a dozen or 15 different places while she was growing up. And she always told us, if you like the people where you are, you're going to like them where you go. And so I remember walking into 8th grade, January 1970, and it was a nice move, and I enjoyed it and enjoyed growing up in Bentonville. And of course, back in those days, Bentonville was a very rural community, much like McDonald County. In
cattle back then,
chickens, orchards. Mm-hmm. In October of 1970, Sam Walton went public with Walmart, and none of us really knew what was going to happen or how it was going to change things, foresee things, but they were innovative. Sherry's dad was the first president at Walmart after Sam and Walton. Yeah. And very innovative, marketeer of the year, really knew how to sell things. I worked for him for a while, and Lamar worked for him, and we learned a lot about innovation and ranching. And back in the day, back then, you used to try to use new technologies that would tie into computers, and you'd have reams and reams of paper.
Yeah.
But today we have the cloud, and that's really helping. So,
isn't it amazing how technology really does trickle down and affect every industry, every way of life?
We're bridging the gap in ranching from tradition to precision. And we're looking at having the best quality cattle for the best quality eating experience, high marbling, excellent genetics, but we also use other technologies. Everybody has a cell phone nowadays. Right. Give you an example. In our well house, we now have RanchBot hooked up, so I can watch the flow of the water. And what these new technologies are doing, I can see that the cows are going out. I would have thought when they got up in the morning, they were drinking their first big drink, and then they would maybe late in the day. The RanchBot app shows me that the middle of the day is when they're drinking most of their water.
How does that change your game plan of feeding them? Does it?
It may or may not, but what it does tell me is when I get up at 5:30 and I look at my app, I can tell that the water's flowing. And that's what's important to me.
Right.
If it's continuing to flow too much and we've lost too much water, we have a leak. And so these technology like that allows us to scale up and have other operations. Yeah. So we can use the technology to grow.
Time management,
watching our resources, knowing what's going on. Otherwise, I have to walk down there or drive down there and look at the well, and I can see if it's working, put in eyes on it. This allows me to do it in a much shorter amount of time.
Right. Because I imagine you have a lot of business side of the ranch that needs dealt with. And so that would free you up to not have to be there, like you said, all the time. Oh,
but if we're wanting to grow this, which we are, we have the place in Arkansas. Now we have Adams Place leased over here on the prairie. It's going to allow us to scale and to endure from generation to generation by knowing what's going on with our ranch, preserving our assets, watching our time.
Right.
It's a big part of what technology brings.
Well, let's go back to what you just brought up, generation. Let's talk a little bit about the family side of business. Can you speak a little bit on that, just about your family and how important it is?
No, my grandfather bought that first ranch in Wyoming in the late 30s.
I read that, late 30s.
In the late 30s, and my dad was going to, of course, come back to the ranch after college, but the Army took him, and he was in.
So for what war was he drafted?
World War II.
World War II, okay.
Yep, he went
That's
for 4 years.
Scary, but fascinating.
Took out a huge chunk of his young life when he was overseas. He came back, and he told his dad, he says, I don't think I'm going back to college. I'm just going to run the ranch. And his dad had quit college, the University of Wisconsin, his junior year, and it was probably the biggest regret of my grandfather's life. And he said, no, I'll sell the ranch out from under you. And so my dad finished, was the top graduate in 1949 in agriculture from the University of Wyoming, came back to the ranch, and he and my grandfather built the ranch. And they were early innovators. One of the things Lamar says is if we don't measure things, how can we know if we're making progress?
Exactly.
To that point, my grandfather in 1940 bought a scale to weigh our calves. And we went from a cowboy ranching culture of roping and pulling calves and giving them their vaccinations, branding out there, to working calves individually in a little chute and weighing them so that we knew how much they weighed. That was his first investment. And along those lines, down here, we have for Chase and myself and whoever's working cattle, one of the state-of-the-art working facilities with silencer and molly. And that was Lamar's first investment here when he bought this ranch, is something that we could handle the cattle safely. It has a scale right under the chute. So every time they go across the chute, the data is recorded, and through a couple software programs, it's saved up in the cloud.
Well, sure, it's important to know if we imagine for multiple reasons. You know, if you're making money, but also to know if you need to change grain or feed if a calf is struggling. I mean, it just makes sense. So
my dad, in the 50s, my dad and grandfather sold calves, finished calves. And I have the bill of sales still in tubs. I carry around all this records, but $11 a pound on finished steers. So that would be a finished calf would bring $110, say 1,000-pound calf, something like that. Today, a finished calf is bringing close to $3,000 to $4,000. So there were some tough times in ranching, prices. The other thing that, of course, we're always watching is for rain. And for us to raise grass in the Ozarks, we need a rain about every 2 weeks.
Sure. Yeah.
And today is 13 days since our last rain.
So you're praying for rain?
We're praying for rain, and we're seeing things we're just on hold right now, but it's very dry. We are in a prolonged drought. And that's one thing that if you're in ranching, you know that's part of your life is watching the weather, watching for rain. And now I see my son doing the same thing in Arkansas. And when we came from Wyoming, we of course bought the place between Bentonville and Pea Ridge. We went through some tough times with a dairy in the late 70s, early 80s. Lamar and my dad, I was there for a while. We ended up selling our home place to Jack Shoemaker and his wife Melba and the Shoemaker family. And they have owned Jack's Ranch, which was in northwest Arkansas for 40 years. Well, he passed away in 2010, and his widow, Melba, Sherry's mom, passed away a couple years ago, and Lamar and Sherry re-inherited our home place. So it's still in the family. Yeah, since 1970, it's either been in the Steiger or Shoemaker family. So, yeah, and that's very nice that it's back in the family, and that has expanded and is now around 1,000 acres. And my son is developing that, helping develop that, and it'll be both for agricultural. And I don't know if you saw the announcement recently about the 808 spur, the bike trail that's going to run right along Highway 72.
But I've been hearing
it's they're building it right now.
Yeah.
So it's exciting to have the fourth generation involved down there.
Yes.
How this place came about was, probably it goes back to the Walmart story. And that's the biggest question I get when I meet people in McDonald County is, are you related to the Waltons? We hear that this is Waltons, and it's not. But it has strong ties to Walmart because of Sherry's dad.
Yes.
And then Walmart went from no grocery stores, they were a dry goods store, to the largest grocer in 15 years, back in the 90s until about 2008, 10. And they had a pretty bad reputation in meat. It was not very good. But the only rancher they knew, because Lamar was Jack's son-in-law, and Sam would go hunting, a lot of hunting trips, fishing trips. Jack would go along, Lamar would go along. So the only rancher the Walmart executives knew when they decided they needed to upgrade their beef was Lamar.
Yeah.
And so they reached out to Lamar, and from that came a 10-year consulting contract.
That's called having friends in high places.
It is, and it's divine almost, because my dad and my grandfather had worked in the 60s on a beef supply chain with Safeway. It was like watching paint dry, and they did not want to do it, and we made no progress. But my dad continued, and then Lamar and I continued to try. I stayed in the ranching business with quality and innovation, and the Walmart consulting contract that Lamar had for 10 years provided him with an education like very few people have gotten in this country about the beef industry. Yeah. They made a big move about the time the pandemic came. Lamar and Sherry, separate from that, had decided if they were ever going to own their own ranch, they were going to have to find one. So they would drive out during the pandemic and look around in the Flint Hills, and they just kept driving around Bentonville, and they happened in the Elk River Valley here. Sherry was up on the porch of the house that Chase lives in, the Garrison house, and she's going, "This is it. I see. This is it. The kids will come up. They'll float the river." And Lamar's going, "Hush, you're ruining my
negotiating."
So
I don't like it so much.
Anyway, it all happened. It all came together. Lamar thought he would develop this. He thought that Walmart would say, the pandemic's here. We're not going to do a beef supply chain. We're not going to develop.
Scare him out of it.
They would back out. He fully expected that, and that he would develop the ranch.
Prepared to move forward without them.
Right. And so my wife and I, Rocky, came to visit. And first time we were here, we went over to the bluff that overlooks the Elk back over there. And I was sitting there, and God moved in my heart. And I thought, I'll reach out to Lamar. I think I could live here. Never visited with Walmart, and they doubled down. They said, no, meat supply is too important. Having a good meat supply is too important. So Lamar developed a role for me as asset manager. He had already hired a cowman, and everybody expected that I would do the cows. But after 42 years of pushing cows around every day, 24/7, 365 days, I was ready to let somebody else do it. I put in my time. Very good. And so the asset manager job was basically watching his checkbook, being his eyes. It was great. And all that time, we never had a disagreement about.
You learned a lot.
I did. What was interesting was I had AT&T, and there's no AT&T good service in this part of the world.
Hasn't been for a while.
So I would have to drive up to Chase's house. So for the first 2 years, I lived in a pickup talking to AT&T. Now we have Starlink, another technology. Nice. Thank God for Elon Musk, that we're now hooked to the internet in a easy, great way. So why is meat so important to Walmart? And here's the reason. If you pick up steaks, you're going to pick up 17 more items that day. So it is a bottom line driver. So to have good meat and have quality meat.
I see what you're saying, though.
And it was important enough that when they decided to create a beef supply chain with a ranch in Texas, 44 farms, they were ready to do it in a big way. Lamar and the ranch in Texas thought they would do 25 ranches around, or Walmart stores around Dallas and Fort Worth, because this is an Angus-based program based out of Texas, 44 farms. But the president of Walmart was down there at a meeting, and he says, no, we're thinking 10%, 560 stores. And so they have developed a beef supply chain for all of Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, Mississippi, and Alabama. So all the states are through this beef supply chain that my brother helped develop. And it is the largest ranch to table beef or supply chain of any kind in the nation.
That's amazing.
And it's been very beneficial. So Lamar and Sherry, what's been gratifying to me is that they were able, everything you see up here is on Lamar's back. This is from him. He built this up. And
the vision.
Yep.
And a wife who liked the spot.
Well, and she's the one that has the eye and attention for detail. She's much like her dad.
So the truth comes out. People, it's always the wife.
Sherry is very much her dad's daughter, and she really sees things very clearly. And she had a vision. It's called modern ranching. She's very much a part of this. And of course, this goes back to her love of horses and cattle. And
that's one thing that really shines through talking to anybody on this operation and just hearing you talk. This is a passion. This is a passion. It's more than just something you guys fell into. This is a life that you was purposely and intentionally built. And I like that.
And we're very blessed, and we know that. And it's... and
I love the family first. I do want to ask a little bit about your son and the younger generation, which I guess will be the fourth generation.
He's principally down there as property manager of the 808 at the Ridge. But in addition to him is Lamar and Sherry's two oldest. Emily, who's our branding manager.
We read that,
And then Eli, who is over the whole operation. And he basically does what I do for the ranches, he does for the family. They're a big part of what's driving, and that's important to us. Lamar and I have this vision of, it was very much like what we grew up with, a seed stock operation, producing bulls. And that's what we've done for 5 years here, is produce bulls for 44 farms. And we've done it with some of the highest, best technology in the nation, whether it was in vitro fertilization. They collect the oocytes off the heifers, some of the best heifer recipient or donors in the nation, and we send those eggs. If you could get the best calves out of the best cows every year, it would help immensely. And that's what we're trying to do. And we've been producing bulls and sending them to 44. And that's the 808 1.0. Well, now with the addition, the growth, the scale of the 2 and 3 different locations, we're now looking at 808 2.0. And so we want this to be attractive and to be what Emily and Eli and Sam envision. And they may have a different vision exactly than Lamar and I did.
I love that openness, open-mindedness. That's a testament to you guys, the older generation, that you're allowing them to grasp hold of it.
Lamar and Sherry have been very open about that and bringing their children into the operation. And we want that, because if we're going to endure, it's got to be their vision. And when they're in Northwest Arkansas in River Grill, or they're at Honey Pops, and they look down and it says 808 Ranch Beef, that means something to them. And they want to develop that, and that's what we're trying to build.
That's so important. You really do need to love what you do. And so that's amazing that you guys are also supportive of the younger generation really taking off. Let's jump to 5-year plan. So in 5 years, how many locations do you think you'll have? A. And B, what has changed? What's different than right now?
We'll be producing more quality bulls and females for the Southwest Missouri, Northwest Arkansas, Eastern Oklahoma market. We will have a bigger influence on the quality of the genetics coming out of this part of the world. That would be my vision, as we develop enough bulls, quality bulls.
So let's talk a little bit about ag and why it's important to you, and FFA, and what you're doing to make a difference, to make sure your grandkids have a program, a high school program. Let's talk a little bit about that.
It's important to Lamar and Sherry. It's important to myself and the Steiger family that we involve young people and make it an attractive avocation or an attractive job where they have a balanced life of both family and job. And so much of ranching for so many years, if you went back to the ranch, you were married to the ranch. And a lot of the younger, when I say younger generation in the 30s, they just didn't want to do that. They saw that they could have a life outside of that. But with the new technologies, it allows more freedom to be able to have a family life.
That makes a lot of sense.
Part of our mission is to develop young ranching leaders, and we've had several women and several young men, even a young man come through the McDonald County FFA program but we've been blessed that Casey O'Brien from the O'Brien family has been involved and is now working with the 808. We want to be a good neighbor to our neighbors. This would have been somewhat what Northwest Arkansas and Benton County was, but what happened with Walmart, what even is bigger than that? If you look back at when we moved here in 1970, Beaver Lake had just started. It had been filled in 66. And so the water was there. The lake wasn't there. They were starting to come for recreation. And of course, Bella Vista had been right down the road here in the 20s, 30s. But then the Cooper communities bought it, and they had a vision for people visiting, and swimming pools all over and lakes. And all of a sudden, people were coming to Northwest Arkansas in 1970. And Walmart was exploding. They were putting in stores right and left. Jack Shoemaker and Walmart were working hard building something very special, and it's nice. It's interesting to go down and see the changes. My wife and I go down there, even though we have grandchildren down there that live, 2 of them on the 808 at the ridge, but 2 of them 2 miles away. And then it's very nice. But to see the changes every time we go down there and to see the traffic it's interesting.
So I think that this is an exciting time to McDonald County. Big things are happening right now. Big moves are being made. It just feels like there's synergy in the air.
See, the cattle business is a lot like that. It's very exciting times we're living in right now. And I got my first heifer. My dad bought us each a heifer in 1962, and I was 7.
Did you name it?
264. No,
I was gonna say
that's her number.
That was her number.
Yeah.
You still remember?
Oh yeah. Well, she put me through college. Dad's agreement with us was that he got to keep the bull calves and we got to build our herd with the heifer calves. And my heifer put me through Texas A&M. And on the other side, Lamar's heifer was 274, 273 maybe. I can't remember his number, but only produced bull calves. So consequently, Lamar had no herd when he got ready to go to college. But he ended up making it work.
It seems like he's gonna be okay. I think he's all right.
But it was exciting. When I got that heifer, I was as excited as I could be for a young person. But I'm more excited today about the beef cattle business and the technologies that are being used. And I tried to talk to the class, to the middle school ag students, of which your daughter is one, Ruby is one, and Finn, Casey's son, is in there, and several others. So anyway, people don't think about agriculture other than maybe just a farm as a possibility for a job. But there are lots of jobs available in all kinds of different venues, and with all the new technologies that are out there,
Well, Carl, I think that we're about to wrap things up. I think it's been fascinating to hear about all these just all these things you're doing here on the ranch. And again, I know I said it already, but I just really impressed. You can the passion just kind of oozes out of you. You really can't help it. You smile when you talk about it. You light up when you talk about it, and I like to see that. This is your thing.
You remember you probably don't, but there was a movie called City Slicker with Billy Crystal.
Do I remember? I know the whole movie.
So what I think is when my dad was stuck in that auger,
Yeah.
he figured out it. And for him, it was faith in Christ and in God. And he based his life on that. And even though he was a rancher, he had a great run. My favorite book is The Time It Never Rained. And it's about a 7-year drought out in West Texas.
Hmm.
And in that book, it talks about ranching. You have, and I look at my dad this way, he had his fair share of hell in his life. He really did. Mm-hmm. But he got to glimpse heaven. Mm-hmm. He had a sparkle in his eye, mm-hmm. and he could see what was coming.
It's wonderful.
Cool.
All right.
Well, thank you for visiting me.
Yes, thank you. It's been such a pleasure.
You're welcome.
You guys, we will see you back next week for another episode of McDonald County 411. I'm your host with the most 411, Tara Rubeck, and we'll see you guys next week. Thanks. Bye, guys.